Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Cricketing Hour. Because Test cricket is well and truly alive as Sri Lanka have beaten England at their own home. It's an away victory for them. It's the highest chase in the history of cricket by any Asian team against England in England. A fantastic win. You can call it a consolation win all you like. But the fact of the matter is, Sri Lanka were extremely competitive in all three games this summer. They took England to crunch moments in the first two tests, and they managed to convert those crunch moments in this final test, winning by 8 wickets, a very healthy margin indeed. So welcome everyone. We're going to talk in detail about that. We've already had a video about the first two tests where we go over the plethora of chances that Sri Lanka had to win their first two tests as well, which unfortunately they couldn't convert. However, this is the mark of an actual champion team. Not that they win every game with dominance, which is obviously a symptom of being a champion team, but the cause of being a champion team is that you learn from your mistakes, and that's the first thing Sri Lanka have managed to do right in so long. So let's dive straight into the game. Day one was rain affected and England dominated it. 221 for 3 in 40 odd overs. Ollie Pope in sublime touch. He managed to get 150 plus at nearly a run a ball or even faster than that. This is prime Baz ball. It doesn't get any better than that. 261 for 3 were England midway through the first session of day two. And from there on, everything went pear shaped. They had a collapse of 7 for 64. And the key thing for me is this whole collapse, 7 for 64, 261 for 3 to 325 all out, all happened in less than 20 overs. There wasn't any middle order player or any tail ender who decided, okay guys, let's just try to hang it out for a bit. Let's try to see if we can maybe bat till the end of the session, just see out the session, see if the wind changes, conditions change, we can find a little bit of rhythm. No, they did not change their mindset at all. They kept attacking with the same sort of positive intent you've been used to from this Stokes McCullum side, even though it's the Pope McCullum side for the moment. But they kept their intent going at the same peak, and this is obviously a double-edged sword because it means two things. A, if it works, brilliant. If any one of those players had managed to get a few boundaries rolling, immediately the momentum would have been snatched from Sri Lanka and the entire collapse would have stopped midway and England probably could have constructed in a good way. However, the downside to this is that it's much harder to rebuild an innings if you're trying to whack every ball out of the park. And even though baseball has been widely mischaracterized as trying to whack every ball out of the park, there's some element of truth in this hyperbolic statement because baseball is indeed far more aggressive than typical Test cricket. And when you are more aggressive, you're going to take more risks. You're going to lose more wickets. When you can't afford to lose more wickets, when you're trying to stop a collapse, maybe the wisest thing to do is to just stop for a little bit. And we're going to come to this in the third innings as well. Let's just talk about it. In the third innings, England did nothing, frankly. They were 156 all out. They had a very healthy first innings lead of 70 odd runs. As far as test match first innings leads go, 70 runs, you take it any day of the week. And they completely failed to convert it. 156, they set Sri Lanka, again, a relatively low target, although in test cricket, on a pitch that has already been batted on 3 times already, you can never be sure. 220 is definitely defendable, but the fact of the matter is, England, according to their captain's words, shot themselves in the foot in the third innings. Because 156 is not going to be competitive at all. Had they gotten 250, I don't think Sri Lanka will ever chase 320 against England at this oval pitch in these particular conditions with this particular team. I think 320 would have been far beyond anything Sri Lanka could have even hoped of achieving. And even their first innings wasn't great. They got, obviously, Nissanka batted really well. Nissanka gave them a very brisk start, 64 of just 51, and they were 93 for 5. He fell at 91 for 4, then they were 93 for 5. And after that, really, there was just one partnership they had in the entire innings. That was DDS, the skipper, along with Kamindu Mendes, who has had a fantastic series with 250s and 100. Great job from Mendes. He is one player who has impressed me immensely from this Test match series. And that partnership was really the only one Sri Lanka got. They got to 220 odd for 5, and from there on, the tail and the late middle order did absolutely nothing as they were bundled out with a 70-run deficit. So the third innings then, was the actual decisive moment of the game. And I've always said throughout this series that Sri Lanka were failing to capitalize on the crunch moments. However, they managed to do that in this game. In the first innings, when they saw on day one, okay, things didn't go their way. On day two, as soon as they came on, they saw they had an opportunity at 261 for 4. They took that opportunity and they bundled England out for a collapse of 7 for 64. On day 3, again, they managed to smell blood in the air. They saw England was being over aggressive. They got a few early wickets, and England still kept batting the same way. Now, this is again really important. We just discussed it earlier as well, that England's baseball approach means they will continue to be aggressive no matter the cost. They will not judge their baseball strategy by the result, rather they will judge it by the process. And the way I personally always evaluate baseball is equivalent to the 3-point revolution in the NBA. So for those of you who don't know, in the NBA there's a 3-point revolution led by players by like Stephen Curry and so on, who come to realize, and this is backed by statistics, that trying for the 3-point shot, which is more risky but nets you a higher reward than the 2-point shot, is actually the optimal strategy for basketball, mathematically speaking. And even though obviously taking a 3-pointer is far risky, there's more chance of you failing, mathematically, statistically, optimally, the best strategy is the more aggressive one, and that is the 3-point option. So I believe that for a team as backed with statistics, with some of the best analysts, people like Nathan Lehman, for example, working with them, I think that they have definitely deciphered that an aggressive approach is actually the key to Test cricket. And whether it's going to become the meta of Test cricket, I don't think in its current form it's good enough to be that. The meta of Test cricket before has always been caution, 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 and baseball is bringing a new ingredient into the mix, which is aggression, aggression, aggression. But I think the truth is probably a little bit between the two. Definitely the way Australia or India or Pakistan are playing Test cricket right now, I think that's probably not the meta, but neither is baseball. The truth is more aggression than what most cautious teams are doing, and more caution than what baseball is doing. But definitely it's a very exciting experiment in cricket, this entire baseball phenomenon. Lahiru Kumara, Vishwa Fernando, they were the main culprits of the third innings collapse. I thought Vishwa in particular, he did a great job. Lahiru, of course, got some crucial wickets, and Jamie Smith was the one who stood up. So he got a 67 of 50. Now again, the thing is, he could probably, I'm assuming, also have gotten 67 of 100 balls, or 120 perhaps. But he realized that when the Sri Lankans are on fire, when there is nobody to support me, when the team is going to be all out within 40 or 45 overs, regardless of whether I hang around or not, I better take my chances when I get them, rather than waiting for a ball that has my name on it that's going to get me out no matter what. Rather than wait for an unplayable delivery on a tricky surface, I should just take my chances, go for the balls, hit them when I can, and get to 67 as soon as I can. And that's what he did. And really, had any other player been willing to stick by him, Ollie Stone, of course, managed to stick by him for a bit. They went from 82 for 7 to 130 odd. But it's just a matter of one partnership. As I've said, if England were 220, 230, I don't think Sri Lanka are ever chasing a 300 plus target in this sort of condition. The 219 target, Sri Lanka went about it really sensibly, because 220 is not a score that you can scoff at. It's definitely not the highest of all fourth innings chases in Test cricket, but 220 can definitely be a challenge on a surface that is not the easiest, in a pressure game, on a side that believes in itself as much as England do with Brendan McCullum as their coach, for a side that has won every single home test this this English summer. England went 5-1. They won 5 games in a row, and they only lost this one. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do a clean sweep, but credit goes to Sri Lanka. So there was definitely pressure on them, but they managed to handle that pressure, and that is how Sri Lanka were able to cross the line. Pathum Nissanka, of course, in both the innings, however much is said about him, is still too less for him. He's a tremendous talent, and it's good to see him performing at this level in the red ball game after a bit of a drought. So a fantastic effort from Nissanka, and definitely he's got more to come. And DDS, of course, the skipper, he chipped in a little bit. Angelo Matthews, he chipped in a little bit as well. But the two standouts from Sri Lanka for this series are, in my opinion, number one, Asitha Fernando, 17 wickets, more by anyone else in this series, and Kamindu Mendes with 250s and 100. These were the two players who were consistent. You could count on them. They gave opportunities to Sri Lanka regardless of whether other players capitalized on them. They did not capitalize in the first two tests, but they were able to capitalize in the third and final test. And the good thing for them is it wasn't just these two players, of course. Other players chipped in at crucial times. For example, if you look at the first innings collapse that England had, DDS, Dhananjaya de Silva, he only bowled 4 overs, did the skipper. In those 4 overs, he took 2 wickets. He got rid of Wokes, and I think he got 1 other wicket. And he completely dismantled any hope of a British recovery there. So definitely credit goes to the entire Sri Lankan unit, led of course by Dhananjaya de Silva. But the key thing for me, and I'd like to end with this, is Andrew Fiddle Fernando, who is a fantastic author on ESPN Cricket Info, he wrote, and I quote, that this series shows that there is a world beyond the Ashes, or the Border Gavaskar, or England versus India series that is full of life and vibrance, that is worth taking more seriously than cricket currently seems to be. I could not agree more with this. You look at the Pakistan-Bangladesh games, twisting and turning every single session. You look at how Sri Lanka are fighting for every session, fighting for every single run they can get against England. You look at West Indies winning a test in Australia. You look at the England versus India games we've had recently. You look at the recent 2-2 drawn Ashes. Test cricket is not just alive and kicking, it is not just surviving, but it is thriving, indeed, is Test cricket. And obviously, I have my problems with the World Test Championship. I don't think it's currently suitable in its current state at all. For a tournament to have a points table that no casual watcher can ever understand without trying to dive in deep, calculate what is the percentage of points scored with a calculator you've whipped out from your cupboard after so long, I don't think it's feasible to have such a tournament like that. Definitely the disparity that England have played, 14 tests in the World Test Championship. Some other teams have played 5 tests. I don't think it's workable in its current format at all. But the problem is not with Test cricket. The problem is only with the organizers, with the way this tournament is formatted, planned, devised, judged, and basically overseen. That is the problem, because the WTC has a lot of potential. I always say what Test cricket is lacking to really bump up some interest is stuff like an India versus Pakistan series. It's stuff like, okay, if you have the top 4 for a World Test Championship, get them all to a neutral venue, have 2 semi-finals, have a final. It cannot take more than 2 weeks to do this. Have the 2 semi-finals simultaneously, that's gonna take 5 days. Give the players a 4-day break, then have the final. 14 days, boom, bam, done. You've given yourself a fantastic spectacle for Test cricket fans, and I guarantee you, if you do that in a place like England, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, where they regularly have high crowds of Test cricket attendance, then I guarantee you it will be a massive success. And if you don't want to necessarily look at the stadium crowd, look at the buzz that's going to generate on social media, the way you're going to be trying new things. So I really think the ICC should take a leaf out of this, boost the World Test Championship, because Test cricket is thriving. It's just a matter of how you market the product. So do share your thoughts on this. It's a very hot topic in cricket nowadays, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye and have a nice day, guys.